Good day, everybody. This is your Market Watch, May 8th, 2025. It's about 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Looking at the last 24 hours here of activity in Santa Clarita Valley, we are going to look at 701 total active listings. Up from 2 weeks ago, we were in the low 600s. So that's where inventory is starting to go. We have 16 properties that are coming soon. We have 96 new listings entering this market in the last 7 days. 109 properties have had their prices reduced. 15 properties have actually gone back on the market, falling out of escrow. We have 56 properties that are in pending. 35 properties actually entered escrow in this past seven days. We also have 16 properties expired, 58 properties completely sold and closed escrow this last week. So we are down in those numbers. Looking at the rest of the real estate inventory and those trends, we're definitely holding at 701 active listings. We do have a 3% uptick week over week. This is still below the 900 plus we saw pre-pandemic, but it's enough to definitely cool multiple offer frenzies. Now, we do see a price cut surge with over 100 price reductions. We do see sellers that seem to be a little bit panicked, but if you look at those overall sales prices, you're going to see that those don't fit in properly, because these are properties that are placed on the market higher than what people expect to pay. So that's those reductions. It is not affecting the actual overall prices. So prices are still on the increase. It's just sellers are pricing their properties with a different strategy, putting them out higher, understanding that they have time and that those properties will eventually sell. Now, we do have those 35 properties that are active under contract versus those 15 that have come back onto the market. Some of the things to look at, and one of the things that we tell our sellers, those pre-inspections are kind of important depending on the age of the property. If the property happens to be in excess of 30 or 40 years old and you've done very little in the way of upkeep and maintenance to those properties, and it doesn't have to be, fantastic, everything upgraded, but the basic systems, the electrical, the plumbing, those sorts of things, if you have been neglecting those over time, you might have to be paying for that now, because what happens is buyers are going to come in, they're going to have their home inspector look at those properties, and they're going to want to vet them and ensure that those properties are at least livable, habitable, and safe. A lot of the issues we see come up is that those properties aren't deemed safe by the home inspectors, and it's not them trying to chisel anything out. These are licensed contractors for the most part that are giving their stamp of approval on a particular piece of real estate. That's why also, as a real estate seller out there, it's important to have an agent that vets that particular home inspector, even though your agent hopefully isn't also representing your buyer, depending on the case and strategy, of course. But if they're not, that puts them on the other side of the ball, on your side with your ball, and hopefully they'll be able to look at that home inspector and say, yes, they are a contractor. No, they're not. They do have proper certifications. They don't. So then you can validate at least what they're saying, instead of taking everything as it's the word of God and going through and repairing things that might not actually be an issue. That's why having that real estate's incredibly important. Now, one of the things that we always try to look at are the particular numbers. So we do have the active inventory that I talked about that has changed. Greater Los Angeles, we have 10,600 units. That is up 4%. Ventura County up 1,450 units, up 2%. San Fernando Valley up 2,900 units for sale. That's up 3%. Now, Los Angeles County as a whole is adding stock faster than the Santa Clarita Valley, which is not uncommon. We always see things a bit more dynamic in the Los Angeles areas, but price reductions there are only somewhere around 7% versus our 15%. So that does indicate Santa Clarita sellers are adjusting more aggressively, trying to keep ahead of the market and not getting behind. Now, micro advice basically for you buyers out there, today 109 price cuts. You might want to look at your pricing strategy if you've been on the market a while. Just a little change in price is enough to kick off that marketing and advertising on those online channels. So you'll see that the syndication sites out there are going to be populated with the real estate listings that are, of course, for sale. When you do have any kind of an adjustment, whether it's in some kind of description or the actual prices out there, you will see that float your property back up to the top. Now, having said that, if you're hiring a real estate agent that isn't using artificial intelligence in their business model by incorporating active chatbots, intelligent websites, marketing and advertising of your listing, using AI interfaces and AI technology, you're really going to be falling behind. Maybe not seeing that yet, but you give that 3 or 4 months, and again, the agents like myself that are really embracing AI, that are doing speeches on AI, talks on AI, consulting on AI, for even other agents in the industry, because there's a lot of games being played on that front, as is always, right? You see some new technology come out, everybody says, oh my gosh, you got to get it, it's got to be the thing. When we're talking about intelligence, we look at the last 2 cycles in the world, and I'll go a little bit off script here, looking at the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution. Those were based in intelligence, but not solely intelligence. We had machines and mechanical processes put into place that did do some kind of replacement of human beings. This is now an intelligence revolution, 100%. Now we are creating, or have created, something smarter than most humans, and pretty soon it will be smarter than all of us. How is that going to be accepted? How is that going to be used in the best ways for whatever business you might be in, and also for you trying to get done what you need to get done, which in this particular case, from my point of view, would be to get your house sold or have you buy the house at the best possible price in the best possible terms. Both of those things need to be looked at carefully, and if you're using an agent that you're asking them about artificial intelligence and they look at you like a deer caught in the headlights, well, maybe you need to reevaluate. Now, I wanted to look at a few things here. Let me run down to the notes that I had put together with regard to days on market timeframes, because this is where the changes are starting to take place, and something that you might want to be aware of. So is it taking longer to sell residential real estate? And I tracked back a couple years. So we looked at January month over month, and then we looked at February, March, April, and this is going to track back, and they definitely are. They are selling to sell in this months, both 2023 and 2024. So we have 20 to 37 day median days to sell properties. We see that changing up from anywhere from 10 to 15 days, as we saw in the last couple years. During those same blocks of time, January through April, now we're going to see that the market is starting to shift a little bit, being more favorable to real estate buyers out there because of the time frames in these properties sitting on the market a little bit longer before they actually get sold. By no means is this a very traditional market as we saw year over year in years past, backing up 10, 12 years. It is not that type of market where it's taking months and months and months to sell real estate. Still, with the time frames less than a month to get properties into escrow, depending on prices, that's still very much an advantage to real estate sellers out there. But if the trend continues, we start getting more and more inventory, we're going to see the market start to level out, and then those core prices that I spoke about at the beginning of the video, those core prices will be impacted. So we will start seeing price reductions if we continue to get more inventory and we still have a buyer drive that starts to slow down a little bit. The other thing is the Fed. The president, of course, wants the Fed to drop that rate, and if that happened 100%, it would kick off a real estate cycle like we probably saw, like we'd see 2 and 3 years ago, probably very similar to that, where we would have properties sitting on the market. We would have prices increase, and we would have a lot more buyers entering into the market. That's if those rates got into the 4s. Then we would see a massive refinance boom and everything else. But the Fed, they're holding steady. He doesn't want to change nothing, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. But mark my words, if you're a real estate buyer out there and something happens and he gets triggered and he does reduce that overall 10-year bond rate that's going to correspond to real estate mortgage prices, you're going to see that rate lessen, and then you're going to see the market kick off dynamically, because people are panicked over tariffs, over a lot of different things. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Up to you to do your own research. But real estate, folks, whenever the economy gets shaky, it's all those tangible items people grab onto, and real estate is real property. It's something that you have, you can go to, you can live in, you can touch, you can feel it. It's not paper stocks and those types of commodities, which in the real world you got around less than 10% of the people are really involved in that. real gold, real silver, real estate. These are things that are going to kick off, as we always see. And right now, with the insuredness in the markets, it's going to be changing a lot. I'm Connor with Honor. Thank you for watching this update. We will see you back tomorrow, as always. Santa Clarita, openhouses.com, main system. And I'm Connor with Honor. Over and out.